And we are live here from
Awesome.
the, the home studios of Sonia Plumb Dance Company. And here with me is Mike Wall, composer for Dance of Da Vinci. And he composed all the music in it, and most of it is original composition for Dance of Da Vinci. And I have been so thrilled to work with him. So I am going to let him tell you more about himself. I want to say, though, before we begin, that this is the first time I have ever seen Mike's face. We've worked together for almost 2.5 years or so, and we never saw each other. So, all right. So tell us who you are, where you are, and all that good stuff.
So, hi, I'm Michael Wall, and I live currently in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I am the program head of modern dance in the School of Dance at University of Utah. I'm a composer and performer and musician, and let's see, and a dad and a husband and a dog owner and all different types of things. And I looked before we got started when we first met each other, which was in 2013 was the first time you ever wrote me on email.
Yes.
So we've been communicating for a long time now. So for more than a couple of years, I think it was like the first time you asked me to do a project, I think it was back in 2013. And then we started doing some work, I think around 2014, 2015, 2017. So were the things I saw. But yeah, this is the first time we've ever talked face to face, as it were. But we've worked remotely for a long time and talked on the phone a bunch and shared a bunch of emails and notes and all that. So thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. So I know I reached out to you for privacy settings to help me with that, which is actually and I love that piece as well. And it's turning into an arts integration program this year. So
cool.
Yeah, so excited. So we're going to start with a quote from Leonardo, and it was when I used it, we recorded it. Sean Coco, who's a professor at Trinity College and really knows his his Renaissance, humanism, all that. So his voice is actually on one of the recordings, but I'm going to share that first. Then we're going to look at the video, because then Michael is going to talk all about it. So here's the quote. It's from page number 219, and it's number 995. That the brightness of the air is occasioned by the water, which has dissolved itself in it into imperceptible molecules. These, being lighted by the sun from the opposite side, reflect the brightness which is visible in the air, and the azure which is seen in it is caused by the darkness that is hidden beyond the air. It's just a gorgeous quote. So Artist Studio leads off the whole entire dance. So while I get myself over to YouTube, Michael, why don't you have about, let's say, 45 seconds while I get my fingers going. So go ahead and talk a tiny bit.
Sure. This has been one of the most played. So what I did with usually what I do with music from commissions, if it comes out really great, is that I'll put it into albums and then release the albums. And this one was enough music to do something just for this project. And Artist Studio leads off the album as it leads off the dance. And this has been the most streamed of all of the songs from the album.
I find that super amazing. So I'm going to show probably 2.5 to 3 minutes of it.
Great.
And it's on YouTube. And I am going to end it there.
Great. That's so cool to see. I haven't seen that in a while.
Thank you. Yes. So, Mike, why don't you tell us what inspired you and what did you see? I'm trying to remember what I would have first shown you or told you. And I know what I did, but I'd like to hear it from your point of view.
Well, what I remember, we spoke a little bit yesterday in prep for this, and what I remember really clearly about this one was the footage that you sent over. I put up just because I really believe in like grabbing ideas and right when they come out and just sending them right away for feedback to see what folks think and see if anything catches. And this one, I put the video up of the choreography and had my piano set up and just played an idea, and I thought it worked super, super well. And I was really excited, but I was like, okay, this would just be a rough sketch and I'll come back to it. Because I recorded it on all with MIDI, so all digitally. And I was like, okay, I'll come back and I'll do a version of it on my acoustic piano in my studio. But I sent it and you worked with it for a little bit and you loved it, and I was like, okay, that aspect of it was done. Because if I remember correctly, I mean, there were a lot of cues for especially this first run. I mean, there were well over mean, 15 or 20 different cues with all the different voice stuff and text parts.
Yep.
So that's a lot of cues. So spending too much time on one cue, I wanted to move along, and that one I felt like was a good grab. So I just threw it, and I was like, oh, I'll come back to it and re-record it later. And I think later, as I got through some of the other music, I was like, okay, I know I had a note to revisit it. I played it, and I was like, I was just so, I was really taken by the sound of that MIDI piano and the sound of the recording. And I even sat down and recorded another version of it on an acoustic piano. And I was just like, oh, it was missing a couple of the phrasings, and like the notes weren't exact because I was kind of improvising a little bit. And I put the new recording up with the choreography video at wherever the dance was at that point, and it just it didn't have the same thing. It didn't hold the space in the same way, and that's always what I'm looking for, is when I see movement, whether it's in the dance class or if it's on video working remotely, I'm trying to imagine, I'm trying to listen for what will hold this space the best, what will support the dancers and support the choreography best in this space. And I was like, wow, even on a first take, I was like, okay, that's that one. And I think that was the one I had to do. I did no editing on that one whatsoever, and it stuck. And so I was really happy with that one.
Nice. And I love that you use the word, the space, and support, because I feel as I have, especially when I collaborate, or I don't know, and when I have started new choreography, I love that the music gives it space often, and that seems like such an perhaps an esoteric word for some, but it is. It's space to respond, to let to even let the dancers have a little bit of freedom, and not be having to be married to a downbeat. And sometimes they do need to be married to that downbeat or the syncopation or whatever. But in that particular, which leads off, and it works. And I remember being worried, like, oh my gosh, will it draw the audience in? Because it's a very meditative way, and the artists, the dancers, are creating their art, they're creating their sculpture, and they're going to become those characters that are being created, and people really enjoyed the time that it took.
I knew that the rest of the piece is, because I was imagining what's so great about working with you is there's so many great things about it. But one of the really great things about working with you is that, especially for this piece, you had a plan very early on. Like, you had a sketch of almost the whole thing, and they were all these different islands. And so it wasn't about like, okay, we need to make an hour's worth of content and I don't know what that is. And sometimes you're going through a discovery. You had a pretty clear plan, like there's going to be these different sections. And so as we were talking through just some of, all of the different sections, I knew there was going to be some pretty complicated sound design stuff, some complicated electronic stuff, some stranger instruments, which we're going to get to one that's like one of the strangest instruments I have access to. But so I knew a great way to invite people into, this world, which the writing alone is super complicated and beautiful and dense and all of this. But what we were creating, the whole arc of the piece was so complicated and dense with all different types of layers. So I knew like a good welcoming in, which is like, hi, like just very simple piano, just very, I thought it would work really well, just inviting the audience into a whole ride that was about to happen. So
yes, and it indeed was a ride. It was, and it still is a ride, and it's a ride I love taking. Yeah. shoot, I should have written my note down because there was like something I wanted to ask you, and now I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
but
if it comes back.
Oh, I know what it was.
Okay.
How many instruments do you play?
Well, it's, I mean, the ones that I play well, I play piano really well, and I play trumpet really well, and I can sing. And then I have lots of toys, ukulele, tiny synthesizers, big synthesizers. And then with the laptop I years ago, I started working. Well, when I started composing for dance about 20 years ago, we would take pieces into the studio to record in recording studios. And I realized right away, like one of the instruments I had to learn was recording techniques. So either tape machines or what is now the thing I'm talking to you on right now, which is a laptop. So in a way that became a whole nother instrument, is how to engineer and record music, because just budgets were always so compact, and I can create so much more if I could control the recording aspect of it. And so once I got comfortable recording, I also had access to all these software instruments. And then once you get into these software instruments, then it's really all bets are off. You end up playing lots of different instruments. And so I have one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit, this really strange instrument called the basantar. There are all these instruments that are being made and created now, that like the basantar exists in real life, but I would never have access to something like that, So you have all these different like software instruments that are very strange, and I can control them just with a piano keyboard, or by writing some computer information in. But in a way, you have to really find the nuances of them, you have to practice each of them. Even though you're using a piano keyboard that I know really, really well, it doesn't work that way. Like you have to learn how to find the exact way to play that software instrument. So at this point, how many instruments I play, like, but yeah.
Right.
I also play a bunch of drums and hand percussion and stuff like that I used to have to use for class. But right now my main instruments are piano, trumpet, and synthesizers.
It's so interesting because I know I played the piano
Yeah.
for 13 years, and sang in the choir, and I think I played the guitar for maybe 9 months.
Okay.
No, maybe it was a little longer. But there's a certain weight to a real instrument and how you touch it or touch the keys, whether it is a piano or an organ or the weight of your hand on a drum or anything like that. So
Sure.
I imagine it somehow that is being replicated through the software, and then also your manipulation of that software.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of like what we're talking about and how we're even able to talk now. Like a big part of what makes our relationship work is that we've been really great at remote collaboration. And I think the reason for that is that I've learned to be able to see more than just the 2D of a video screen. And I think there's some folks that for a long time were like, you can't really see anything from dance in 2D. Now we're being forced to really kind of take witness to those statements and see how we can, we're coming to terms with that, with now everything moving online. But I've always been able to see more than just the 2D and haven't needed to be in rehearsal. And I think that's true with these software instruments as well. So it's there, because there's a 2D aspect of it too, right? Or, it's not the same as the piano I have over here that I can feel the weight of and everything. So it's using your ears to kind of imagine what that is like in an actual space, the same way I'm doing with video, like looking at what are the dancers actually doing in their weight and their connectivity to each other and their perspective in relation to each other, and really trying to see weight. You can see so much on video, you know.
You can. I mean, and it's amazing that you're telling me this, that you saw that, because you know, as we started working together, I just had this sense that you understood, and now that I'm having to relearn and teach from video, and not be able to like do it in front of a dancer and feel the weight, I'm having to pull it out going, okay, there's that detail. That's where the pendulum swing is. That's where the weight drops at the bottom. And it's all this vocabulary we use in the dance studio. But now, you know, even the dancers who were learning it for this Dance of Da Vinci 2.0, they were learning on video, and we all had to, you know, I'd have to point out to them, you know, we'd get the first layer, and then you have to go down and dig, and like, okay, then you pick up the minutia. So that's so cool that that you're saying that, because I had no idea. I just trusted you because it was working.
Yeah. I that is definitely the thing that folks are, you know, because I'm in higher ed, I work at the University of Utah, and when we had to switch online, it was like, okay, how can we best do this and really, really quickly? And now we're at the end of the semester. Right?
Yeah.
As we looked at the 11 weeks, like what were the challenges and what were the things that went really well? We realized that we could put almost everything online.
Wow.
But the thing that was the biggest struggle was, how do you assess movement? You know, on video, like that aspect of like learning to now look at movement, and even more so as educators, to assess it, to be able to support growth and development. You know?
Wow. That is going to be true for all of us dance educators. And that's amazing that you're sharing it. Wow.
But it's not the first art form to have to deal with it. You know, think about when music went to, you know, when music, I mean, I'm not trying to be corny or anything. When music went to records, and then ended up going to tape, and now on digital. I mean, there's still folks that are like, oh, analog sounds better, like records sound better than digital. And it's like, well, I you know, I mean, better, different, they're totally different mediums, all that. Or, you know, painting or visuals to then paintings to then photographs to then digital photograph. Like, so what's cool is that there's lots of the arts have already been here, and so you're in good company to like have you can learn from all the mistakes that like other folks other art forms had, you know, switching to online anyway.
And actually, just an aside, and then we can move on to elephants.
Sure.
Is that with the explosion of dance? Someone asked me this 2 or 3 years ago, and it was like, all of a sudden, dance is getting seen because of the digital world. Where, you know, my first 10 years of performing, I was well known here in Hartford, but nobody else knew, you know, nobody else really knew what was going on. But, you know, now I've got people from across the pond dancing for me, you know, and wanting to, and that's exciting. It's exciting that we're you know, we're getting seen. So I want to share elephants now. It's one of my favorite pieces. Oh, they're all my favorite pieces. So I said that. But I'm excited. And this is what instrument that
it's called a pheasant. So you can imagine an upright, I don't know what my hands are doing right now, sorry. But you can imagine an upright bass, so a big upright bass that this person added strings from the top down, and then cut into the resonating body of the upright bass, and put even more sympathetic strings. So there are these strings that just resonate as you're playing. So it has more strings than an upright bass, but then it has all these strings underneath that when you hit it, they resonate. They start vibrating and making sound Kind of like if you, some folks are familiar with, if you take like a djembe and you put something on top of it, it'll start buzzing. Or lots of West African musicians put these things that shake on the side of it. So it's the same thing. Like it adds some noise that that just gives the whole sound of the instrument a really cool texture. And this recording that I have, it uses both the bowed technique of this instrument and then the percussive element of it, so hitting it as well. And it's an instrument you can actually hear once you get used to it. It's all over the show Breaking Bad.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah. So I was watching Breaking Bad and I was like, oh, that's the bassantar. And so you hear lots of folks that score, but I know especially Dave Potter, who writes for, or Dave Porter, who writes for Breaking Bad, use this instrument. So
Wow, that's
yeah.
so cool. Okay, well, and oh, that is fascinating. So one thing I will share is the words that you will hear in Elephants again are from Da Vinci, Leonardo, and we pared it down because it's quite a long passage. And Mike ended up recording his voice, so it's fun. It's just so here we go. Let me share my screen. And I'm getting so much better at it, I think.
We all are.
All right, this is Elephants. And this was from Dance of Da Vinci, performed at the Bushnell in 2018.
The huge elephant has by nature what is rarely found in man. That is honesty, prudence, justice, and the observance of religion. Inasmuch as when the moon is new, these beasts go down to the rivers, and there, solemnly cleansing themselves, they bathe. And so, having saluted the planet, return into the woods. And when they are ill, being laid down, they fling up plants towards heaven, as though they would offer sacrifice. They bury their tusks when they fall out from old age. For these two tusks, they use one to dig up roots for food, but they save the point of the other for fighting them. When they are taken by hunters, and when worn out by fatigue, they dig up these buried tusks and ransom themselves. These beasts always go in troops, and the oldest goes in front, and the second in age remains the last, and thus they close the troop. Out of shame they pair only at night and secretly, nor do they then rejoin the herd, but first bathe in the river. The females do not fight as with other animals, and it is so merciful that it is most unwilling by nature never to hurt those weaker than itself. And if it meets in the middle of its way a flock of sheep, it puts them aside with its trunk, so as not to trample them underfoot. And it never hurts anything unless when provoked. They delight in rivers and are always wandering about near them, though on account of their great weight they cannot swim.
And there we go.
Awesome.
Elephants. Whoop. Ah, there we are. Yes. Yeah. I think one of my, besides hearing the voice and the instrument, one of the favorite parts in developing that piece was that we would look up video of elephants online.
Oh.
And like the baby elephants and this and that and them playing and their trunks and all. And so, when I asked my dancers to be elephants, and you start like, it's just too much fun. And you gotta have fun.
Yeah. It seems from a lot of the rehearsal video I saw, the dancers have fun in your process.
Yes. Yeah. Even when the subject matter might be difficult or challenging, it's just we make ways and acknowledge how that is, but it creates a bond. Absolutely love it. Just love it. I miss being in the rehearsal process right now. I can't stand it, actually, because I can't touch anybody. So
yeah.
It's that's the hardest thing. It's the hardest thing right now for this self-isolation and quarantine and all that business. But I got through it. So what did you want to talk about now? Did you want to talk about the process, or what do you think?
Well, we one of the things I think is really unique about, even this conversation, is that we're doing it remotely, and that that our relationship and lots of relationships I have with choreographers over the last 15-20 years since we've been able to move video digitally, because both you and I are at this point in our lives where we do remember when you had to when you had to mail VHS cassettes back and forth, for rehearsal footage and stuff like that. So I think as soon as everything could go online, I was working remotely with so many folks. And I think what's really unique about us is that we do it really well. There's a real ease to it. And I thought, since now so many folks are having to literally go online, and the practice is shifting now, but not for everyone. For folks that have already been collaborating online, there isn't really much that's been taken away, So I thought it would be cool to just maybe share just a little bit briefly about how we collaborate and the things that we think, are that go really well, and some things that, just tips for folks that are moving to online. So
I'd enjoy that. I'd enjoy sharing that. Yes.
Yeah. I think the first thing is just that shared space, that having a place on the internet that has a document with all of the different notes in it. So what we do is we create a folder for the project, and then in it we put a Word document or several Word documents, and that's where all the notes for the piece go. So I think that becomes a challenge, is if there are messages from Facebook, messages from texting, messages from email, messages from the phone, and then notes and things like that, that if things are collected in one place, the ideas for the piece, or at least the ideas you and I are sharing, then when I go to work, I can go into that space almost as if, like, again, not to be corny, but if I'm going into the space with you, that it's like, okay, I'm going into our workspace and I'm going to look at, okay, how much time do I have left? What are the responsibilities left? What are the tasks left? Meaning, like, what aspects need to be recorded? What videos have you uploaded? They're all put there, and I can see the newest ones and kind of click to them. And I think that shared space is really the key thing to being able to work remotely. What do you think?
I agree, and that it's organized and and laid out, because you're right. If the notes are in 5 different places, it doesn't work, and it gets scattered, and and um and
Especially for big pieces, not to cut you off, but like we usually do big pieces, not like 1 5-minute, 10-minute piece. So yeah.
yeah, so it has to be organized, and this is the section, and about how long, and then if sections get moved, and I say, well, I think I want to move it here. I think what really helped me, and what helps whenever I'm working with a composer is, and you might have led me in that direction, is, okay, here's a song of yours, song, music, composition
Sure.
I really like. And I know, and then it'll be, well, what do what do I like about it? Well, I like that instrument, or I like this tempo, or this speed, or the what's in the, and so that gives you a starting point. But I think that's not, sometimes I think I may have just given you choreography and had to figure it out, because that's exciting too.
Yeah, elephants, you definitely were like, what is that? And
That music.
can you make something for that? Yeah. And I'm like, no problem. That's easy. And I love parameters. I love parameters that are based like that, even if it is other folks' music. Like here's some things I've been listening to. If a choreographer's starting from nothing and just looking to jump into something, like, okay, send me the things that you've listened to most in the last few weeks, or things you've been playing in the studio, and try to get them to talk about what specifically they might like about it. But yeah, if it's a piece of mine, then I know how it's constructed and I can grab those instruments. I think something unique to you as well, Sonia, is actually that you've listened to a bunch of my things. And so when we started working together, it wasn't just like, hey, I know this guy makes music for dance. I maybe saw a piece of his and liked the music to it, but you'd really listened and even gone into the studio or into dance classes and used some of it before in your process, like either finding choreography. So when you were hiring me, there was a certain point where it's like, if you just give me choreography, and once we got to know each other and trust each other, and you said, you're like, if you're like, hey, I think this is, what type of environment this needs, might be, meditative or somber, or kind of open. And once you learn that, like, I can interpret that not as like, the recording of a lawnmower through a distortion pedal, that we could trust that we had shared language and all of that, then it really is like, what I think is really special about you and why we work so well, and why I think remote collaborations come off well, is the idea of saying yes to things that happen. Because you can feel like there's a feeling that when you're working remotely, that there's a disconnect. But the disconnect can get exacerbated if you don't say yes to what's happening right in that moment. And so when I'd be surprised if I could find a single note back from you that was, hey, you know what? That was totally wrong. Look at, you're laughing because that's not even your vibe. That's not even your as a person, right? And it doesn't mean that it's that whatever I make, is just willy-nilly. But I really did watch the rehearsal footage, and I really did. That was my honest, that's what honestly I think would work really well there. And so if you're saying yes to that, then that trust just spirals, and then I think then the disconnect almost doesn't exist. I don't know, what do you think about, I mean, that's my sense of it.
Yeah, I agree. I you're right. I listened to so much of your music, and I liked it, so I loved it, so I felt like that you were someone I wanted to work with, and that you wanted to work with me just opened up the relationship. And as I have I've been collaborating with different artists for a long time now, and I have found I don't know. I don't know what you know, and I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to communicate, and I want to do something new. So I don't ever want to say that's wrong, because it's not wrong. It's an exploration, and if something needs to change because it's all right, that's not pushing the dancers enough, they need a little bit more energy here, then we go back and then that's that, and that openness and that willingness to be able to not take it, neither of us are taking it well, you're not taking it personally. It's like, this is we're creating this together, which is very different. Yeah.
And I would say when it gets, when the work gets really great and the collaboration process gets really great, you're almost,
You're breaking up a tiny bit.
actually, oh, am I breaking up? Am I back?
You're back now.
Am I back?
Yeah. I know that the internet gets so busy.
Okay, cool.
They warned me about this.
Yeah, me too. There's several folks in my house, I think, on Zoom meetings right now, probably. So, but can you hear me okay?
Yep. I don't know what you said before.
So I think, you were talking about, not taking things personally. And I think when the relationship between the collaboration remotely gets really great, you're almost able to take things personally, because there's not that disconnect. And because you're such a kind person. So I would say that's the other part of making remote collaborations go really well, besides like keeping organized and communicating well and saying yes to the things that come. I think it's kindness. I mean, that's true for almost every type of collaboration, right?
Absolutely.
But you're an extremely kind person, so it makes for a really great collaborative process remotely,
Yeah.
and probably in the same space too,
Right.
We've just never seen,
Right. And you're so, I think your positivity is so encouraging. And I think that is a huge part of the success as well, or of the collaboration.
I did it wrong for a long time. Haven't we all, right? When you're young, and
so have I. Yeah.
I mean, what's that Bob Dylan line? I just said it to a grad student the other day who was using Bob Dylan in their thesis, but it's that idea, like, I knew so much more then, but I'm younger than that now.
Yeah.
That I'm totally butchering it right now, but like, but that's the thing. Like when I was 20 and I thought I knew everything, and I was like, "Here's what you need for your." I would even cross the line a little bit and be like, "If your dancers could,
Yeah, dance. So yeah, right.
But you know what I mean? Like, but I think I've learned over time, like it really is like being humble and learning from every type of collaborative process. Like, what can I learn from you? What can I learn from your choreography? What can I learn from our process? What can I learn from, just what can I learn from the collaboration?
Yeah. You know what else I think is really interesting, and I actually think it helped us, is that, again, this is the first time I've ever talked with you face to face.
Yeah.
And I think that also kept it clean in a way. It kept me having to hear, and not be, hear your music, and and hear your voice.
Because we talk a lot on the phone.
Yeah. And that, I think that was, I really do think that's important. It was important for me. And I think maybe you know, maybe that made your eyes look differently too at the choreography. That I have no idea. That's your story, but I know what my story is. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really interesting.
Uh-huh.
So we have invited Mike to, and we're hoping when this crisis is over, and that he can come up and do a week of, you know, music and dance up here in Hartford for summer, and if it, we're keeping our fingers crossed, and I think
Definitely.
it's going to be like strange for me to have you in the same room.
Yeah.
You know?
I've done it before, so
Yeah.
I got you. I can walk you through it.
But
There's definitely folks that I've known for a long time online and worked with for a long time online, and
yeah.
then you meet them in person, and it's like, and I think you're a true person, and I'm a true person, and there's not much different to me. I might be a little bit more boring in person, maybe. I don't know if I'm exciting on the phone or on video, but I'm serious and kind and all of those things. So,
I think,
but I get the same from you.
yeah, and I just am so thankful for musicians in dance, and when we get to have live musicians, oh my gosh, it's so special, and that's, and having music composed is so special. It's just, yeah, that's.
I feel the same. Right when, right when things started going online, especially for educators, the thing that I felt really nervous was how our folks. I mean, we talked even at our university and on different Facebook group. There was one Facebook group that started with like hundreds, and now I think it's thousands of educators all over the world talking about how the heck do we do this in a good way. And there was a big concern for how music was going to happen. Um, and I just started thinking of all the licensing and like the things of like, no one's bringing any of that up now, but there's so much being taught online that's using music. And I'm just like, oh no, I hope this doesn't backlash. So right away, I threw up a whole bunch of music and just canceled licensing for a while.
Right.
Just as we make this initial shift, and it's the same for me because I would not have a career without choreographers and dancers and people commissioning pieces or dance classes to be able to go into and play. And so here's a moment where I could give back in such a great way.
Yes.
And I just right away did that right away. But the feeling's mutual, for choreographers as a musician,
Yay. That licensing thing, I think is going to be real, and it's going to be, yes, dealing with it. We all have to deal with it, as do the dancers and the choreographers. And I saw when you threw that up, and I thought that was very gracious of you. And
it's the least I could do.
Right, and we're all trying to figure out what is the least we can do. Right.
With the best effect, and what can I do to affect help in the best way? So
yeah, cool. I think that's good.
So great conversation. It's great to see you. It's great to chat with you in real time, face to face. If my eyes look a little strange, it's because you're over here. And I was like, should I be looking at the camera? But then I wouldn't be looking at you. So I chose to look at your face. And so if my face looks weird, that's why. So,
well, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah. You get some folks, it's like they're on Zoom calls, and it's because they're looking at their phone, like the
Right. I tried to, let's not do that. Yeah.
Cool. Well, have a good evening, and thank you so much. And share this with me when it gets done, and I'll put it out.
Okay, I appreciate it so much, Mike. It was a joy having you. Thank you. And
it was really.
We're looking. I have to tell you, we are going to be performing it this summer outside at the Hillstead.
Great.
And so we're looking at 2 dates, one weekend in July and then one weekend in August. It'll probably be the August weekend just to make sure we have time, for everything to whatever. But
to whatever.
yeah,
Totally.
the whatever.
Yeah.
So we're going to be working together real soon. Pick up where we left off.
Great. I look forward to it, Sonia. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, take care.
Okay. Cheers.
Cheers.